We are live.
All right. Good morning and welcome to this fresh new episode of Breaking the Barriers, Women in Tech. This is the fag end of the year 2021. I know we have all gone through a lot, both on work and personal fronts. This is the time to reflect upon, and also to learn lessons from the past. Also, I would give season's greetings to all the friends and listeners of this conversation, of this LinkedIn Live session, for a great Christmas and a new year. Um, in past, in past 1 year that we have been running this extremely exceptional show, the Dynamic CIO Breaking the Barriers, Women in Tech. We have had many leaders from both IT and security domains who have literally broken the barriers and outshined their contemporaries to reach onto the top. We may say so that this is a cliched approach to highlight women or bring them under the spotlight. However, this has resulted into great inspirations that we have got as feedback. So while women may have made consistent and impressive gains in education attainment and workplace, from boardrooms to classrooms in the last 50 years, men still outnumber women in high-ranking leadership positions by large margin across various industries. I was referring to a recent Standards and Poor gender inequality report, which mentions that only 5% of the women, only 5% are CEOs. Women are the CEOs of S&P's 500 list. This gap in many places is even reflected in the salaries and promotions. While I'm not suggesting that this is a general trend, however, there is a strong element of truth in this. One more data point I would like to refer to before I get into conversation with a very special guest today. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index 2021, India's ranking is 140th, which is 20 ranks lower than 2020. Not very encouraging at all. India, according to this very report, is amongst those countries that to date have the largest economic participation and opportunity gaps. There are many numbers that I may refer to, I can refer to, but I would refrain in the larger interest of time. So in this series today, we have a very special, famous, well-known woman technology leader. Woman leader. Why would we just straight bracket her into technology? Woman leader Debjani Ghosh, who perhaps needs no introduction at all. However, she is currently the president of NASSCOM, the fifth in all and the first woman to break the barrier. She has been one of the most vocal and astute proponents of Digital India and is making all-out efforts to ensure that the industry progresses well to meet the growing expectations. Now, prior to joining NASSCOM, she was the first woman to lead Intel India and also the Manufacturers Association of Information Technology, known as MATE. In January 2018, she was felicitated by the President of India under the auspices of First Ladies Program, which honors exceptional women pioneers in their respective fields and domains. In 2020, she has been honored by Vogue as the Tech Leader of the Year 2020. She has also been listed among India's most powerful women in tech by Business Today. Welcome, Debjani. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Rahul.
Great. So let me begin this conversation on a slightly lighter note, and then we will focus on the questions that I've prepared. So you did your bachelor's in political science, so did I, entered in the IT industry in a marketing function, only to rise as the managing director and hold that position successfully for over half a decade. It's a very fascinating shift to me. I mean, let's talk about it. Why not politics? Why a corporate job? Why a technology industry?
Well, why technology industry? Because when I walked in for the interview, at that point, I now just finished my MBA and I was interviewing in a lot of places, etc. And the company that we're talking about, Intel, when I walked in for the interview, that was the first time I saw a woman on the other side of the table interviewing me who was not HR, who was not there to just receive me, but who was head of business and marketing.
Okay.
And that was not something I was used to. That we didn't get that in those days. We just didn't get that. It was always men on the other side of the table. And the interview, and the woman that I'm talking about, Deborah Conrad, who's one of my mentors even to date, um, the interview turned into me questioning her more than her questioning me about how did she get here. And I was just so surprised. And it's one of those moments where words like ambition become very legit.
Mhm.
It's if she can do it, I can do it too. And it and it I was very certain that if Intel asks me to join them, I'm absolutely going to say yes, even though I didn't know a thing about technology. Because if this is the place where talent can rise, irrespective of gender, irrespective of anything else, then this is the place I want to belong to. And thankfully, Intel did ask me. I said yes. And it has been, I spent 21 years with that company. And I have to say that it was just amazing. It was just amazing. It was all about learning, merit, um, and your own ambition.
No, excellent. I think that's where a strong resolution to rise to the occasion comes from. And as you said, you felt as if you were interviewing her more than she. I mean, than the other way around. I think that was the highlight of this whole of this particular part of conversation. So. From leading one of the global tech giants to leading one of the most coveted and powerful industry bodies of IT organizations. Was it a transition of some kind, or do you think it was a natural progression that came to you? Doesn't driving an association industry body require different kind of acumen than driving a corporate?
I don't think anyone has all the acumen and skills required for any job. You don't have it. I don't have it at any point in time. The biggest skill today is your learnability. How fast can you learn and how quickly can you learn? And I think that is one of my biggest strengths. I mean, I'm most comfortable when I'm uncomfortable, when I'm thrown into a situation where I do not know much, because that's what brings out my A game. Then it's about how do you learn? How do you quickly master the game? How do you get to the top? Um, so that has never ever been a consideration for me. As do I know enough? The question is, can I learn, and do I want to learn? I think that's always been my consideration, not do I know enough. um, Second, I think career choices are made, or should be made, by where you want to go, where your passion is. And when I came back to India with Intel to run the South Asia business, India was the largest part of it. Um, I didn't come back saying I'm going to stay on. I came back to do a job and figure out after a few years where I want to go. And when I started working in India, I realized for someone who's not an engineer, who applies the human lens to technology, I mean, my strength in the technology field is looking at technology with the human lens to figure out what will have the maximum impact on us humans and what therefore needs to change. So when you look at technology with the human lens, couldn't find a bigger playground than India, because the problems when it comes to improvement of life in India is just so interesting, so challenging, from last mile delivery challenges with respect to healthcare, education, to inclusive technology, to intuitive technology. I mean, there's just so much that you can do, and it forces you to think out of the box. So for me, it was very clear that this is home. I have arrived home. This is where I want to be for the foreseeable future. And how do I find a platform which will allow me to do what I want to do in a bigger and more impactful way? So that's when, had a chat with mentors, etc. And I was very convinced that I couldn't find a bigger and better platform than NASSCOM to drive the change I wanted to drive. So it was a progression from that perspective. And again, career choices should never be made by how much you know, because you will never know enough. If you think you know enough, then your growth is it's reached the end point, right? I think career choices have to be made by um, what are you most passionate about?
Yeah.
Is the new opportunity is the new whatever the role that you're getting into, that give you a bigger opportunity to do more, to follow your passion, and how fast do you learn?
No, I totally agree that, the day you assume that you have learned all or you have learned enough, I think that's the end of your progression, your future, your evolution. So absolutely right. And also, some good leaders find opportunities in discomfort, and that's where you are coming from. So I have been, as a journalist for past 25 years, I have very closely followed and worked with a few leaders, especially in NASSCOM, starting from Devang to Kiran to Som. Also had many opportunities to talk to Sri Chandrasekhar. The bar was already very high. And, if I can ask you candidly, you know, carrying that legacy and moving it up and up from where it was, what difference do you see since the time you have been at the helm?
So first of all, Rahul, when you get into a job, especially where giants have walked before you, um, I wouldn't even aspire to carry their legacy. I will aspire to build my own legacy.
Yeah.
And that's been my mindset in every job. It's no fun being someone else or
Yeah.
doing what someone else is doing. That's not me. I'm very clear, and I was very clear that if I do this, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to, it's going to be my footprints on the sand, not following somebody else's footprints on the sand. And we've
Absolutely.
all done fantastic jobs, right? So, about the legacy that you want to build, I think for me, NASSCOM has the power to be the most effective catalyst
Mhm.
for not just the growth of technology industry, but the growth of technology adoption in India and maybe across the world. Um, the challenge that we are going to face when we think about technology is not whether it's Web3 is real or whether metaverse is real, or all the discussions that's happening today. But the biggest challenge we're going to face is, as the boundaries of technology absolutely explode and disrupt. I mean, just in this pandemic, I think more than 1 billion people who had never used technology before would have started using technology and entered the technology universe, because you had to use technology to even survive in the last 2 years, right? So as we get the next billion and more joining the tech universe, how do we create a world that, or a, how do we ensure that technology is truly intuitive, it is truly inclusive, it becomes the greatest equalizer, rather than strengthening the divides that have already existed between the haves and the have-nots. I think that's the biggest challenge ahead of the industry. And I think as NASSCOM, we are phenomenally well placed to work with industry, to work with government, to work with academia, and pretty much all stakeholders to ensure that the tech industry in India becomes not just a hub for innovation, not just a hub for digital talent, but a hub for impact. How do we create the maximum impact on human lives? How does our technology create the maximum impact, and what is required to do that? Whether it's growing the right kind of talent, whether it is the policy regime, whether it is data governance, whether it is ensuring that the right security protocols are in place, whether it is building responsible, inclusive tech. Um, there's just so much to do. And that, I think, is what NASSCOM should focus on, so that the legacy we leave behind is not just growing an industry, which has always been the past focus, but growing impact of technology on the world.
Uh, you know, it's a very, very loaded answer that you gave. However, I captured a few. The gist from it is that, the ground that you got as NASSCOM. I mean, the horizon was very, very wide, and it really is an effective catalyst for technology adoption, if I say so. And seeing that from the past, from being a sheer lobby to what it is today, I can certainly vouch, that the statement is absolutely right. And again, as you said, the challenge is, as the boundaries explode and have exploded in the recent past, how to ensure that tech is so intuitive that it helps in bridging the divide between the haves and the have-nots is absolutely right. And shall we, Indian tech industry is already on the path of being the hub for that impact. So, that impact comes from, as you said rightly, from a better skilled manpower, a collaboration between government and industry, by creating new platforms for innovation. So, how do you see this whole thing being very pervasive in a short and long run through NASSCOM and other initiatives, that it really creates an impact, and Indian technology industry is seen as the hub for that impact?
See, if we are now not entering, I think we've already entered the era of the digital economy, where a country's, a nation's ability to leverage technology for its citizens, for governance, for impact, etc., is going to decide the next generation of leaders. Um, in a digital economy, there are a few things that becomes extremely important. For example, the currency, I believe, of the digital economy is trust. If you trust, you will work with the company, or you will, if you, and basic things like, do you trust the company to keep your data safe? Do you trust the company not to misuse the information that you're giving them? Do you trust the company to build solutions that will not harm you? So trust becomes so important in the digital era, and we've seen this in the world of hyper remote work, hyper hybrid work. Trust is all we have. So first, it's all about trust, and how do we build trust? And I think the Indian industry has done very well in building trust globally, and not just the Indian companies, but even the tech industry in India. It's a very connected ecosystem that we have. Second is talent. Um, Talent is today one of the key competitive differentiators when there's a major talent crisis around the world. So businesses will go where the talent is, and talent is what will decide the what I call the mastery, the or rather Paul Daughtry of Accenture, he called it digital mastery, which will define whether a company can use, because technology is democratized. Technology is no more a differentiator, whether you will be able to use the technology better than your competition. So that's what depends on how good or bad is your talent. So how do we become, as the Secretary IT puts it so brilliantly, how do we become the talent nation?
Yeah.
For the world, the digital talent nation for the world? I think that's the second one. The third one is, in today's world, agility is make or break, because we are playing an infinite game, as we've realized during the last 2 years of the pandemic. There is no end point, there is no finishing line, right? So the only way there is no clear winner loser, but the only thing you can do is continue to adapt and continue to grow, change, and that's how you go ahead. So how quickly do you adapt will determine whether you get ahead over your competition or not. Um, how responsible are you? For example, in today's world, customers are demanding that have you taken enough steps to reduce your carbon footprint?
Yeah.
Do you have a sustainability plan? How inclusive are you? I mean, that again, I'm so thrilled that that's something that customers today are asking. Show me your succession plan. How inclusive is it? If we have to work with you, we have to know that you have an open mind and you're an equal opportunity company. So I
Absolutely.
think these are some of the going to be differentiators of the future. So how do we ensure that when you think India, these are the strengths that you see? And I think that's the job ahead.
Great. I think the plate is overflowing. I mean, the work that you have already done and the charter that you have for the future, tremendous. So let me come to some questions which are now going to be related to the topic women in tech. So the whole world, especially the tech industry, is being very vocal about diversity and inclusion. Focus on women is much better, or I think more prominent than ever before. And if we look at some data, it proves that the organization that embrace diversity are able to innovate more and are more productive and agile. So how do you see that progressing? Where do you feel there are still gaps, and how can those gaps be addressed and bridged?
So first of all, it's gone way beyond conversations today. Today it is about action because you have to find the talent in order to survive, and talent comes in all shapes, forms, and gender. Um, I think the first thing that all of us have to do, Rahul, is move from using the word of thinking diversity to thinking inclusion.
Yeah.
Um, Diversity is the past. We have to think about being, and that's what at least my conversations with the tech CEOs is all about. How do you build an equal opportunity environment?
Yeah.
Because you all need the best talent to survive. How do you ensure that your organization, your hiring processes, your even your job profiles are not creating filters that will leave gender or whatever out? How do
Yeah.
you ensure that? How do you truly get gender out of the equation, right? And that's the work that we are doing today with a lot of companies. And it's not just gender, right? How do we ensure we embrace neurodiversity? I mean, what we've seen is people with learning disabilities have, frankly, the most innovative minds.
Yeah.
And we've seen this across. Whether you look at all the top guys from Steve Jobs to Branson, and you see that pretty much all of them grew up with some kind of learning disability.
Absolutely.
How do we embrace that? Because our current education system and our current recruitment processes do not support.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of thinking going on towards how do we build a truly inclusive agenda charter, and how do we revamp or reimagine processes across from hiring to growth, to remove those filters or biases which have, for one, I didn't tell you this, but I strongly object to anyone calling me a woman leader.
Yeah.
I'm a leader, period. I don't call you a man leader.
Absolutely.
Why do you have to use my gender before leader?
Absolutely.
Right? So these are the things we have to get rid of. And, the devil's in here. So we have to
No, I agree with you.
And
And I kind of improvised that why should I call you a woman leader when the whole world knows you as a very astute and a very firm leader in the true sense of leadership. So I completely agree with you, Debjani, on that. And this cliche actually has to go out of our heads. I have no doubt about it. And I think I may not be exaggerating, but I think it will take a generation to leapfrog from this mentality to the
this
other.
has been created over thousands and thousands of years. So it's not going to go away in a day. But I think what I strongly advise, not just every woman, but all of us, men and women, to do is call it out. When you
Yeah.
see it, call it out, because most of us are not doing it with bad intentions. We're
Yeah.
doing it, it's an unconscious bias. So when you call it out or you hold up the mirror, next time the person will not do it. So, and that's how change comes about.
Yeah, and I think in the Indian context where there have been great examples of women leadership, I mean, women in the leadership role from in different eras, right, from the feudal times to the contemporary democracy. I think there is a great learning. However, I would like to still play a devil's advocate here with some numbers which I threw earlier and substantiating on that from the World Economic Forum's global gender gap. I think those numbers don't stack up in our favor yet. So, for example, only 22.3% of women participate in the labor market in India, translating to a gender gap of around 72%. We are a home to around 0.65 billion women. It's a very alarming issue that needs to be addressed. Don't you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got a lot to do with mindsets. I'll focus on what can control or influence, which is the tech
Yeah,
industry, right?
true.
And the tech industry today, at hiring, we are above 50% women. But on an average, we are around 37 to 38%, which means we do have a leaky pipeline. And we continue to lose women as they move through the life cycle in the industry. And I think one of the things we have to realize is, where do we lose women? I mean, usually what we have seen is, this is the one thing we usually do not use gender, but this is the one place where I will say there is a clear differentiation in genders. Women tend to be more loyal. So you don't lose women to competition that fast unless you're really ill-treating them. But where you do lose women are 2 points in their lives, which I think are it's most vulnerable for a woman. One is when they get married,
Yeah.
and two, when they have a child. Right. Now, one of the things we're thinking through is, how do we change to ensure that they get the support required to make that transition without feeling that they have to drop out. If
Mhm.
we can just bring in some level of flexibility in thinking, and give that support required during these phases, we will not lose the women. They
Yeah,
will stay in the system. So how do
absolutely.
we bring about some of these changes? And how do we ensure, one very strong conversation I have with every tech leader is, show me who's the woman who's in your succession plan. And if you don't have one, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest change we have to start bringing about when senior leaders are hiring, and senior leaders mostly are men. When they are hiring, they want to hire their clones. They want to hire people who look like them, think like them, who they feel that will do a good job because they're like them. And this is what has to change. So I think HR has to play a huge role in holding up the mirror and breaking some of these mindsets and barriers. Um, and I just don't know if HR today is doing that well enough. I think this is, to the HR community, they have a much, much, much better job to do.
No, I think there is a need for a conscious effort rather than being compliant to what the whole world is doing. And as you said, a lot depends on the leaders, how they hire, how they encourage, and how they create a line of leadership where you are seeing a woman as a successor and not your clones who are
Well,
henchmen
just
and
have, I don't even say have a woman as succession, just ensure that your succession plan is truly inclusive.
inclusive.
Ensure that your focus is on getting the best talent. And if you can just do that and remove all the other filters, you will find that there's a mix of gender, etc., in your plan, on your radar.
No, very rightly, you also very rightly said that the first hurdle or impediment is when marriage happens. I'm going a little too far into it, but when a marriage happens, the first compromise is either expected or is volunteered by the woman of the family, that, I will quit my job, will take on the family responsibilities, or may shift where you live. I mean, this is the cliche that needs to be addressed. Who will address that, and how will the women feel so empowered that they can voice their opinion very vocally?
It's happening. It's definitely happening. The more and more, I think that unfortunately it's the older generation like us who are still stuck to this thought that women are the primary health caregivers. But
Yeah.
if you look at the newer generations, it's changing. It's a shared responsibility. And it will continue to happen. I do believe it will continue to happen because the demand for women today in the industry is growing through the roof. So as people want more women and women see those opportunities coming up, I think that's a natural evolution that will take place. And these are also conversations that employers need to have, not with the women but with the men. That, especially in a remote working environment where you're working from home,
Yeah.
working from home is working for home and working from home. It's not just sitting there in front of your computer whole day and expecting someone else to do everything for you, because that someone else might have a job too. So I think these are conversations that are already happening and will continue to have. There is no magic formula to it.
Okay, so Smriti was supposed to be doing this interview and joining us. However, she's wanting to ask a question. She says that she wants to ask a personal question. So, in reaching the level of success that you have, if anything, what have you sacrificed personally? So have you made too many sacrifices to?
Why do you assume that I would have to make a sacrifice because I'm a woman? Would you ask this question to a man? I
I
have never
agree.
seen you guys ask a man what
I
sacrifices they have had to
agree.
make. So why is it that a woman, the assumption is if it's a woman, she would have had to make sacrifices? No, I haven't. I have loved every decision I have taken. I love what I do. And if I had to repeat it all over, I would do the same, maybe some more. So it's not a, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't live with a victim mindset. you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
for me, it's not about sacrifices. I have followed. I'm very proud that I have been able to follow my passion and take the decisions that help me do more towards doing what I love. And I love my gender. I love being a woman. I think that's the
Absolutely.
biggest advantage that I have.
No, I think this is the time, and this is the tone that one needs to have. This is the behavior, attitude, tone one needs to have to remove these phrases from your vocabulary, from your statements, and absolutely from your life, because you love yourself what
But
you
I have
are.
removed them. I think you guys need to remove them when you interview
Absolutely, no,
people,
I completely
or
agree with
start
you.
asking the men what have they sacrificed.
No, my next interview with the men will certainly have this question included: that what have you sacrificed? Tell me, give me an account of that. Okay, so coming back to our first discussion that we were having, when you started talking about digital economy is all about trust, and you have to create those differentiators when it comes to the tech industry, and you use the word called digital mastery. So if I ask you, where do we see ourselves today, and where do we think we would be in the next 5 years as a nation, as an industry, as a powerhouse for a skilled workforce in new tech, and what is being done under your leadership at NASSCOM?
See, I think India, and I strongly believe this, I'm not saying it as a marketing gimmick or whatever. I strongly believe that India today is brilliantly poised to be a thought leader, to be the leader for building a truly scalable and inclusive digital economy, which is the biggest challenge. According to me, that's the biggest challenge ahead of countries.
Yeah.
The reason I say this, because during the pandemic, the world pretty much woke up to the need for technology to be scalable, to be inclusive. How do you give remote healthcare? And there were countries like US were struggling to figure out remote healthcare, right?
True.
How do you get vaccination out to so many millions of people? Now, this is something that India actually has been building for the last, I would say, decade or so. Whether it's, it started with Aadhaar, the India Open Stack, um, all the platforms that we have been building, the public good platforms. Um, we have today, if you look at it, look at COVID, look at what COVID has done. Um, we have built some of the most scalable public good platforms today
Yeah.
that the world has seen,
Yeah.
and which is allowing us to ensure that we're able to deliver solutions, be it healthcare, be it vaccination, education, etc., at the last mile. Now, of course, there's scope for improvement, and we'll have to continue to improve. I think one of the areas we have to focus on is security
Yeah.
as we build out these platforms. But we are ahead in the game, and I think that's the world will look at India to learn how we've done it. If you just like in a in an organic economy, you need a strong infrastructure, you need the highways, etc., to connect the cities and connect the towns. In a digital economy, you need the digital highways, and the public good platforms, in my mind, are those digital highways. And I frankly think that India has done a fantastic job and is way ahead of any other country in terms of building out the digital highways, the public good platforms. So, therefore, I do believe that we are well poised to take the lead in shaping a scalable, inclusive digital economy. I would love to add one more factor to it, which is
Yeah.
trustworthy. It
Yeah.
has to be trustworthy. And I think there we have to do much more work. So, we have the talent, but we can't get complacent about it. We have to continue to grow the talent. We have to continue to skill people, right? We have the problems, and marry talent and problems together. You
Yeah.
get your magic happens.
True. One more, leaf from the earlier conversation where you briefly mentioned about the digital divide. Now, I am certainly, agreeing to the fact that there has been a lot of um, usage of digital platforms, whether it is about digital payments, or it is about any other large government service. However, the divide still remains because a large part of our population resides in the rural areas, where probably the infrastructure is not up to the mark, the literacy is not up to the mark, the awareness is not up to the mark. So, do you think that there needs to be more work in that domain?
So literacy is, I think, digital literacy is going to precede literacy in India, um, and that's already happening. I think what's required is for the industry to get much more innovative about building inclusive tech. How do you build technology that um, where you don't need to know how to read or write or even speak English to use the technology? And this is why one of the technologies I personally am tremendously excited about is NLP, natural language
Yeah.
processing,
Yeah.
because I believe that has tremendous opportunities. I mean, I could be speaking in Bengali and you could be sitting in a completely different city and understand me in your own mother tongue, whatever that is, right? So, how do we create truly intuitive technology which does not need reading, writing skills, or a proficiency in a particular language, whether it's English or even Hindi for that matter? How can we just speak our own mother tongues and be able to use technology? I think how do you create technology solutions that can work in low resource settings?
Yeah.
Because while we wait for broadband to reach every village, today at least you have 2G and 3G reaching the villages thanks to phones. How
True.
do you create solutions that can, or technology that can deliver solutions on these low resource settings? I think these are the challenges the industry has to focus on and is focusing on, rather than waiting for everything to be fixed and the ideal situation to emerge.
Great. I have just 2 minutes left out of the scheduled time that we have. So I have one last question, not related to anything that we have discussed so far. So when you are not trotting the globe and not at work at all, what is that keeps you engaged and occupied? This could be another cliche, so-called work-life balance. But yeah, I need a good answer to that.
Uh, I stopped trying to figure out work-life balance because I love my work so much.
Yeah.
It's more of integration for me. It's work-life integration, but I do take time off. I'm very, very fiercely possessive about my Sundays, and that's for family. Um, it's I love to read, but I find time to read even when I'm working because that's something I enjoy doing. So for me, Rahul, it's really by what I enjoy. I mean, if there's a Sunday where I want to sit and work because I'm very interested in something, I will do it. You know, it's I don't have these rules, or I don't have. It's for me, it's a more about integration,
Yeah.
but it's about ensuring that. I don't become so selfish that it's all about me, but I also take into consideration what the family wants and the family needs, and I find the time for it. And that's never a problem. That is never a problem.
No, so I've been privy, not privy as in personally, but through your tweets, I've been privy to the conversations that you've had with your mother. And those are very, very interesting conversations, whether it is about digital literacy, her curiosity to know things from you, and you solving some of her problems. It has been really, really fascinating to read those tweets. So thank you so much. I think loaded interview with lots and lots of lessons for the women and the ones who are really aspiring to become leaders. I so much thank you on behalf of our entire group for giving us this opportunity to talk to you, Debjani. Thank you so much, and
Thank
have a
you.
very, very nice festive season. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Have a lovely Christmas and New Year. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.